Hello, my name is Am, and welcome back to my channel on Shingeki Day. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your time. Now, I'm actually about to record episode 11. So I'm actually recording a new intro for episode 10. Now, I just want to mention a few things. Right then, so two things. First of all, it was brought to my attention by the mod, Cephazin. I'm sure many of you have seen him in the comment section. He's the one responsible for keeping it airtight and keeping it spoiler-free. So once again, thank you for that. So it was brought to my attention that the official translation or the choices they made for that specific scene or a few lines of dialogue was a bit questionable, right? So essentially, he sent me a message that kind of outlined a few things, but I couldn't read it before watching the episode. So I watched the episode. I watched episode 10. Then, before doing the discussion, I opened up the message on Twitter, and I checked it out. And of course, you'll see my thoughts on that during the discussion portion. And the second thing is a talking point from the discussion portion. It's from the train scene. Right, as Aaron brings up the notion of having to pass on the attack titan, and that they do need to decide on who should take it. Right. Of course, Mikasa jumped in first. Now, as I'm discussing the possibility of her even being able to become a titan, I said Eldian, right? But the term I should have used is subject of Ymir, right? In relation to that discussion or that talking point. You'll see once you get to the discussion portion and get to that point. But yeah, subject of Ymir is the term I was looking for and should have used in that case. If you're interested in full length for this episode or maybe even early access to the next episode right now, consider checking out the Patreon page. Please remember, it's just an option for anyone who is interested in content beyond the scheduled content. If you are interested, check out the link in the description or in the pinned comment. Right then, that's about it. I hope you enjoy this. It was a fun discussion. It was a really good episode, and it allowed for a really exciting discussion. So I hope you enjoy.
何してるの？鏡に向かって話しかけてたの？ねえ、戦え。黙ってちゃわからないよ。普通はそんな一人で喋ってはしないと思うんだ。
何しに来たんですか？
何って話しに来たんだよ。初めて会った時なんて一晩中巨人について
That was a long time ago, Hanji-san.
私は確信してた。君がヒストリアを犠牲にすることはないって。
Oh? Now then. I mean, I certainly like this, that Hanji is down there trying to have like a one-on-one, right? This is actually something I was going to bring up in my discussion, that, I do hope that at some point they do try to talk to him, right? 2 years ago, okay.
エレン、1年前君に船ごと担ぎ上げられて以来ですね。これからよろしくお願いします。
いいや、今後もお前らとの接触はない。顔を見せたのは最大限の情報だ。
パラディ島唯一の友好国。
ハイズール。
その特使、清見あずま人。
レディ清美。
この家紋に見覚えはございませんか？
これは
見せるんだ、ミカサ。
でも、
What?
これはお母さんが秘密にしてろって。この印は死んだ母の一族から受け継いできたものです。
Now that
私も
is
自分の子に託すように言われ
interesting.
ました。
There it is. There's that connection, right?
およそ100年以上前、あずま人家の御親にあたる我が将軍結束は
Whoa.
フリッツ王家と婚姻にしており、このパラディ島に投留しておられたのです。
Often came to Paradis, meaning
その混乱の最中、将軍家の忘れ形見はこの島に取り残されたのです。あなたは我々が失った一国の主の末裔、ヒーズル国の希望です。
Whoa. So many questions there.
だって手首の包帯
Look at her, she's
誰に
adorable.
も見せなかったじゃない。
Now
これ
that
は
なんか嬉しそうだな。
嬉しいんだよ。私たちは生まれのことで
Look
重
at
い荷物を
this.
背負う者同士なんでしょ。ミカサが一緒ならこんなに頼もしい
they
人
have
いない
that
わ。
connection now, right? Or she has a connection now. Oh, you see Hanji there in the background?
この日を迎えられたのは私たちを引き合わせてくれたジーク・イエーガーの存
Zeke
在
Yeager,
でした
eh?
まずはこちらをご覧ください。
これは
あれ、ご存知でしたか？
She
マーレの
recognized
機
it?
密案件でしたが、
That's ODM
こ
gear.
の立体起動装置はパラディ島で開発された
The one you got from
巨人を
Nikkei.
殺す
There it is. I got my answer.
私が個人的に調達したものですので
On my own.
ご安心を。未だパラディ島以外では採掘されたことがない未知の地下資源です。その兵器の中にも痕跡が残っているでしょう。
傾いた国家が大国に返り咲くほどの産業を手にするでしょうと提案してきたのです。ですがそれが事実なら、
Right.
この
Okay.
近代化の時代において金銀財宝に等しい資源
Zeke
が
knew
巡
the
り合わ
angles.
れるのです。
Oh,
私は出汁に使われただけでは。
pretty much.
アズマ人は金の匂いに鋭いから交渉はうまくいくってイエレナが言ってたな。
やはり儲け話もなしにこの島に来る危険は冒せんというわけじゃな。
こちらは地ならしでこの島を守るために必要な3つの過程です。まず1つ目は地ならしの実験的
Test
活
run?
用。その力の一部を公開し、世界に破
Okay,
壊
that
力を見
is-
せつけるのです。ヒーズルの介入、地ならしが必要なくなるまで、この島の軍事力を世界の水準並みに底上
They
げ
have a lot of
す
catching
る
up
こ
to
と
do,
が
though.
目的です。その期間における始祖および王家の血を引く巨人両者の継続的な維持、これが3つ目の過程。ジークは獣の巨人を王家の血を引く
There's
者へ
only
と
one.
継承。そのものは13年の任期を終えるまで可能な限り子を増やすこと。
手放すことができなければ何世代にもわたり継承は繰り返されていく。今私たちが助かるためならこ
Whoa.
んな解決不可能の問題を未来の子孫たちに残していいのか。
わかりました。私は
Uh,
獣の巨人の継承を受け入れます。
I'm not surprised she just
地ならしが
agreed
我
to
々
it.
の存続に不可欠である以上はヒストリア。
壁を破壊し蹂躙された挙句、家畜みてえに子供を産まされ殺されて、やっと生きることが許されるっていうのなら、俺はジーク・イエーガーの計画は到底受け入れられま
I
せ
mean,
ん。
something clearly changed.
残された時間の限り、あらゆる
Whoa,
選択
look
を
at
模索するのが
Look
我々
at
の取るべ
this.
き最善策ではないでしょうか。
Oh.
この島を危機に追い込んだのかがわからない。もうヒストリアはどうなっても
Yeah,
よかっ
she
た。
noticed.
俺は潜水の巨人を食いました。地面から自在に硬質化を操り、武器でも何でも生み出せるわけです。どれだけ深く硬い地下に俺を誘導
Yeah,
して
I
も
was,
無駄だって
I
こ
was
とで
talking
す。
about this.
俺はいつでも好きな時にここを出られる。
He's choosing to stay around.
当然質を持つ俺を殺すこともできない。
Look at that lens flare.
いくら脅したところでジークを殺すわけにもいかない。
Right?
ハンジさん、あなたに何ができるって言うんですか？教えてくださいよ、ハンジさん。他のやり方があったら教えてくださいよ。
Whoa.
エレンのエッチ、いまだに反抗期かよバカ若者。
Wow. Whoa.
エルヴィン、あんたの唯一の失策だ。なんで私なんか団長にしたんだよ。
Oh, look at that.
中に入ろう、ヒストリア。もっと体をいたわらないと。
Whoa. That was a present, wasn't it?
ジークは島に着くなり巨
Oh,
人にした
okay,
ヒ
later.
ストリア女王に食わせるべきだったんだ。それがまさかガキをおこしらえ遊ばされるとはな。所詮は下船の身に過ぎない名
shut your
ばかり
mouth.
の女王様ってことだ。
おい、やめろ。
Go on, Niall.
下働きを務める彼に気づいたのは女王の方からだ。
She doesn't look happy there.
慣れそ
She
めなん
looks
て
great
ど
though
う
with
で
the
もいい。
this.
問題は女王がなぜ今身勝手な行為に
That's the
及んだの
question right
か
there.
だ。
But that story,
誰かがそうしたん
um,
だ。妊娠しちまえば巨人にされずに済むと。イエレナに違いない。女王が妊娠してジークは命拾いしたんだぞ。
お腹の子は死ぬだろうな。何より女王の身に何か
Royal
が
blood.
おしまいだ。
oh man, this is.
出産は命の危険が伴うと。
She's so petite, right?
その正論でこの国は滅ぶかもな。
Title of the episode.
グリーズ。ニコロ。おすすめはこいつだろ。
Oh. Oh, hold up. There's some shenanigans. Poison, perhaps? Oh, look at this. They're actually putting it into motion.
やらなくていいことだ。バカがあんなことを言い出さなければな。
確かに今はヒーズルからの回答を待つしかないからな。
Sasha.
ヒーズルを介して世界との対話を図るんだ。
Mika said
地
just.
ならしに頼らずヒストリアが辛い目に遭わなくて済むんだ。
Yeah.
わらでもすがるしかねえよ。
Save Historia. Though it looks like.
お前ら図体ばかりでかくなりやがって。
Oh
ヒ
man,
ーズル
hit
の
you.
件でしょうか。
ヒーズルはパラディ島の資源を独占
That
取
was
引したい
clear.
のだから他国との貿易に協力などしない。
俺たちは地ならしに頼るしかなくて。
Though,
ヒストリアの
though
犠
they,
牲は
they didn't
避けられない
sacrifice Historia though, right?
そうなる。
顔の見えない相手なんかを信用するわけにはいかないからね。わからないものがあれば理解しに行けばいい。
I've heard that before.
それが調査兵だろ。
マーレに拠点を設けて潜入。
Oh.
ハンジさん、そんなこと考えてたんですね。
もう少し時間があればな。
More time, that's the thing, right?
あと少ししかね。
There was only more time.
そろそろ決めなきゃいけない。俺の巨人の継承者を。
私が引き継ぐ。
お前じゃダメだろ。アッカーマン家が何なのかま
Right,
だ
they're
分か
not
っ
even.
てねえんだ。
She can't.
何よりヒーズルといろいろやってこってやつが。
Right.
まず俺はエレンよりはるかに頭
Oh,
が
Jean.
土地狂って死に急ぐようなこともなく、いついかなる状況でも優れた判断力を発揮できる
Him stepping up
稀有な
to-
存在。それが俺だ。実際俺以上の人材がいるか？
そんなすげえやつを13年でミス死なすわけにいかねえだろ。アホか。
This is beautiful.
お前は兵団の指導者とか目指せよ。
コニー。
よくないですよ。あなたはバカなんですよ。
え？
よだけなもう。
私が継ぎますよ。実践
They're all trying to take it,
信頼できるのは私たちくらいなら。
protect
消
each
去
other.
法で私しかいないじゃないですか。
いや、だからバカには任せられないってお前が言ったんだろ。お前は俺よりもバカなんだから、お前言ってることが矛盾してるんだぞ。
They're so confused. It's so serious, the tone of it, but
俺はお前らに継承させるつもりはない。お前らが大事だからだ。他の誰よりも。だから長生きしてほしい。
told Falco the same thing.
はぁ？てめえ何が考えてんだ。どうすんだよこの空気をよ。
He calls it out.
じゃん、夕日のせいだよ。みんな赤くなってるからさ。
そうか。夕日なら仕方ねえよ。
Oh. Look at that. The sun is setting on that friendship, perhaps.
まさかピクス
Okay, back in the present.
強行策に出るとはな。そして突然ジークの計画に乗ったエレン。
Right, something happened right in that time
接触
span.
して何を話したのか。真相は本人たちにしかわからない。
お前らにはあれがエレンに見えたか。
Oh, it's going there.
俺は違うと思う。あいつはエレンじゃない。俺たちは奴を切る覚悟をしておく必
It's
要がある。
going
そんな
there.
ことさせない。
サシャが死んだ時
Oh,
エレンは
oh,
ど
oh,
うしたと
camera shaking.
涙を流したと思うか。悔しがったと思うか。
Oh, no.
ゴニー、よせ。
笑いやがった。一体何がそんなにおかしかったんだろう。サシャが死んだことのどこが。説明してくれよ、ミカさん。
Oh, I
なん
love
で
this
エレンは
camera
笑ったの
movement.
か。エレンのことは何でもわかるんだろう。
エレンと話そう。
Jean's like,
と3人だけでエレンの真意を確かめるんだ。
話し合ってどうする？
Hanji tried, but
ジークと同じ目的だったら。
巨人化の薬を入手した兵団には選択肢がある。
ah, contingency, right?
信頼できる他の誰かを巨人にして
Whoa, it's gone
エレン
there.
の始祖を継承する選択だ。
Oh, that transition. It's not poison, is it? Oh my god. Holy shit. Full moon. Just like Utgard Castle. Holy shit. Heicho is right there in the middle. Whoa, I have chills right now. I'm absolutely terrified of the next episode. Levi is right there in the middle of it, and everyone around him seems to be enjoying the same bottles, right? I mean, they, again, they brought attention to the bottles as they're pouring each other drinks. Yeah, but, earlier on I thought it's perhaps some shady business, perhaps it's been poisoned. Now, I mean, even if it is that, even if that is the case and the drinks have been poisoned, that in itself is still quite scary, isn't it? Depending on if Heicho partakes and, does take a drink. But, that was my initial thought that, okay, something is off here, especially given, that ominous shot of the Chef Niccolo, right, holding up the bottle, this one, right? And then, of course, the ominous music kind of transitions into a black screen. And, I've heard that music a few times from season 2, I believe. That sharp, ominous, cut. Yeah. I mean, at that point, I thought, okay, maybe they're trying to poison these MPs, these higher ups, perhaps. And, before I go any further, how about Chef Niccolo being in the situation or, doing something like this? Because initially, he wasn't presented as a follower of Zeke, right? He was on that first scouting ship or the fleet, and he was captured, right, on shore. He didn't go there as one of Zeke's followers, did he? Not like Yelena and Anya Capone, right? Yet here he is, clearly taking part in some nefarious activity, right? Some plans are certainly put in place here. The connotations of this are massive, and I'm, like I said, I'm terrified of this next episode. I guess Niccolo, he became friends with a handful of the scout members, right? Mainly Sasha, Connie, and Jean. But again, that doesn't mean just because he became friends with a handful of them that he's sympathetic towards all Eldians, right? Again, it's kind of unclear if he is part of that group now, Yelena, Anya Capone, Zeke's followers, but he is clearly he's clearly taking part in this activity, right? Where he's agreed to do something here, right? Agreed to hand out really specific bottles, clearly, as, the other guy, Grease, I believe, came down. And, he points him in the right direction, right? Or this direction, this one, right? Now, this full moon is presented, right, in all its glory. And I love that transition from Aaron's eye to the moon, right? Oh, beautiful transition. But also, I know I'm gonna keep going on tangents because there's just so much to discuss here. But I love how by the end of the episode it's middle of the night, the sun has set, now the moon is up, right? The moon is a prominent feature of this. And in that sense, I thought it was great. It was a great use of that aspect. Throughout the episode, you see daylight. I noticed that a lot of the flashback scenes, a lot of scenes that still presented some hope, right? That still had some sense of hope, that they're still exploring options. A lot of those flashback scenes are presented during daylight, right? But then slowly throughout the episode, as it's switching back and forth between flashbacks and the present timeline, you see that it's dusk, right? A lot of the present timeline is dusk. You see Historia, that looked like dusk, right? The day is almost out. The sun is setting. And you see, you see a really definitive end to that aspect, right? As the train scene. It's a beautiful scene, certainly. as that scene ends and you really see the sun setting, and you know that scene itself had such a sad tone to it, such a sad feeling attached to it, because you know, to me it certainly felt like the last time this type of moment might have happened, you know, between these longtime friends, right? And it felt like they used it in that manner to kind of depict the hope slowly fading and fading, right? As the sun is bright at first, you know, all these flashback scenes are quite bright, but slowly throughout the episode, it's fading and it's fading. And I believe it's kind of mirroring, you know, the fading hope of another path, another plan, right? And by the end of it, it's the middle of the night, the moon is in full flow, the full moon that is, and it has brought us to Zeke Yeager, right? Who essentially ends off the episode, and that is the thing that has me so rattled. By the end of it, you know, this is it, right? All hope, I mean, again, it depends, it's relative, but you know, all hope seems to be lost, and it brings us to Zeke Yeager and his plans, right? Zeke Yeager and Eren Yeager, that is, because let's not forget, you know, that scene transitions from Eren being in the dark as well, down in a dungeon, right? Transitions to the moon, and then shows a Zeke Yeager. So I thought, you know, the passage of time and showing us the sunset throughout these different, you know, jumps, right? Flashbacks to present time. It was used to great effect, in my opinion. Now, circling back to the original point, now I might, again, like I said, I might do this from time to time. Again, sometimes you have a thought and you really do feel like getting to that thought immediately before you kind of forget about it, right? But now, circling back to the original point, the full moon, in the context of that scene and Zeke Yeager being present, that changed everything. That is terrifying. Now, the full moon itself, it immediately reminded me of Utgard Castle, right? There's a moment, the scouts, the ones that are actually, you know, trying to find the hole, right, in the wall, and this is around the time they have no idea how the Titans got in. Some great, you know, memories of season 2 coming back to me now. Now, I believe this is one of the first few episodes. It might have been episode 2 or 3. I think it was probably episode 3, because episode 2 was Sasha's backstory. But in episode 3, you know, at one point it's like pitch black, and you know, I remember one of them might have been Nanaba. She, you know, she asked for, you know, if only they had more light, and you know, lo and behold, the clouds part and you see the full moon, and because of the full moon, they noticed Utgard Castle. And, you know, this full moon immediately reminded me of that. Now, little did I know, in a few seconds' time, that full moon and that reminder of Utgard Castle is going to bring a terrifying thought, a terrifying possibility. And I feel like I'm quite confident about this, given the things they've set up here. I personally feel like some of these hints are kind of unmissable here, you know, given the musical cues and the things they're showing us. That's why I'm so terrified of this potential. Now, again, you know, it goes from the full moon. It starts showing us some of these other soldiers, some of these scouts pouring some drinks out, and it appears to be clearly the same bottles, right? They brought attention to those bottles earlier through Chef Niccolo, and again, you know, they show you a close-up of them pouring the drinks. And then who did they show? They show Zeke Yeager, right? And then again, a close-up of his face, that ominous music kicks in again, that sharp ominous music kicks in again, fades to black. I mean, how... you cannot ignore this. So that's not poison, is it? I believe, and I'm quite confident, that they've just set up a potential Titan outbreak. And, you know, Zeke Yeager's Titans, to be specific. The ones that are active during the night, and there's a fucking full moon, and that's the thing that, you know, gives me chills, because they reminded me of Utgard Castle, and then, you know, a few seconds later it actually tied into that, because Utgard Castle, his Titans showed up there, right? That was a thing, right? His Titans that are active at night, and there's a full moon, they showed up at Utgard Castle, and now this happens right at the end of the episode. This setup moment. And the reason this is so scary is because this is the final season. And, you know, I believe in the discussion for episode 8, Sasha's death, I brought up that there are going to be major characters dying, most likely. This is the final season. That's, in a lot of major shows, a lot of long-running shows, depending on the subject matter, final seasons tend to have a lot of major characters die off, right? Or at least, a few major characters die off. So this is scary, man, because they've set up clearly that there's a good chance Heicho could be surrounded. He could be surrounded by Titans. Zeke Yeager's Titans, that is. Wow. Now, that being said, it is the forest of the giant trees. So Heicho has a fighting chance. And of course, this is not just any other scout member. This is the scout member. This is, once again, I mentioned all that time ago in season 3, part 1, the outlier, right? This is the Heicho, Levi Heicho. So he's got a fighting chance, especially, in the forest of the giant trees. And it's been established that ODM gear is quite effective in this setting. Though, the scary part and the challenging part of this is that it's pitch black or it's night, right? I mean, they have fires going, they have campfires going, but, if multiple Titans, transform, then he's going to have to run, right? Or try to, somehow get out of there. And, it does present the prospect of going into darkness, right? Or being surrounded by darkness. So it's scary. It's really scary. So yeah, there is a chance, a good chance even, of the rematch happening, right? Levi and the Beast Titan, Zeke Yeager. It's insane to think that it's at this point, This has like endgame feeling, doesn't it? Now let's try to, dissect the situation. Initially, I thought it was perhaps poison. There was clearly something up. And, first inclination was that, okay, Niccolo is part of a plan to poison these higher-ups, right? Perhaps in an attempt to destabilize the military police, right? Or the scouts, or just the people in charge, right? Right. So it appears that, it might not be poison, but it might be the same type of Titan serum they used in episode 1, right? They, in that case, they kind of set that up earlier in the season, right? The Zeke's Titan transformations, unique just to him, the Beast Titan. And again, they, already set up that he doesn't need to be in his Titan form to do it, right? So, great setup there, I think, earlier on in the season, in the first episode. So, those people, they had the serum, right, in their stream or in their system, clearly, in their bloodstream or in their system, but it was dormant, right? It was activated upon Zeke's scream. So it appears that the same thing might be going on here, right? They're getting it into their system through these laced, drinks, laced with this potential, special type of serum. And then, of course, I brought up Utgard Castle in season 2. That was one of the major parts of that season, right? The new pack of Titans that somehow got in. And that was a big mystery, right? How did this happen? Of course, it became clear that it was Zeke's own Titan pack. And he was responsible for turning Connie's village, right? Including his family into Titans. But again, they still haven't really established how he did that. There is still a mystery about that. Yeah, I've speculated a few things, but I still don't have a definitive answer on how he actually managed that. How did he expose an entire village to that, right? To this special Titan serum, that gets activated on his scream, on demand, essentially, right? So this is so scary. And then, going back to the MPs, the higher ups, right, from the military police, having that dinner at that round table, they all have it in their system as well, but they're not. This isn't close to that, right? The forest of the giant trees is far out. That's the whole point, right? To have Zeke separate from, cities or or the population. Right? They just didn't want him close to anyone, essentially. They just wanted him to be separate out there. So that's far away from this restaurant, essentially, because Niccolo did tell Sasha's dad, his father, that, he's allowed to be at a restaurant, right? So this might be that restaurant. So this is crazy because, again, they've established that it is on demand. So, again, see, there's a few unknowns. I don't know the reach, right? The range of his scream. Say this is the case, and they all have this the Titan serum in their system now, in their bloodstreams, perhaps. And Zeke decides to scream or use that specific scream to turn them. Is it going to reach all the way back in the city as well? That's a fascinating question here, right? Because now, for the most part, it appears to be a few red shirts, right? Yes, clearly a few high-ranking officials, but they're red shirts in the grand scheme of things. But Nile is there at that table. Nile is no red shirt. Nile was a major part of Nile's been around since season 1, and then season 3 part 1. He's played major parts, so he's not a red shirt, right? And he has a family, right? They've established, there used to be those great moments of Commander Smith and Nile, especially since they go so far back, right? In that sense, it is sad because he's one of the last few, connections to the past, from that era of Commander Smith. Yeah, Nile is no red shirt, so there's this really sad possibility here that Nile could turn into a pure Titan. If indeed he has taken some of that, if that is in his system now. All of them are having drinks, right? It's dinner. It's at this restaurant. It's a pretty nice setup, clearly. So it appears that he might be partaking. So that's a sad prospect, And he's got a family, like I mentioned, and of course, the others on the table clearly might have families as well, but Nile is the one the audience has a connection to. Crazy stuff. I'm terrified, but also I'm quite excited that Zeke is putting things into motion, and that he has so many things going on, and that he's still so incredibly difficult to figure out. That he still has so many layers, even after giving us something quite substantial in this episode about his plans. I feel like there's still so much that is unknown about Zeke Yeager, and I love that. Now, that one MP, the really drunk MP, the one Nile had to check a few times, through his alcohol-fueled tirade, I find out that they planned on feeding Zeke to Historia the moment he showed up on Paradis, in this present timeline, that is. So, remember all that time ago in season 3, part 2, Eren had concerns about this kind of thing. He wasn't ready to tell anyone yet because he had concerns about the MP, right, the military police, and their intentions if they find out about this, and what they might do to Historia. Yeah, this is it, because it feels like, again, this isn't 100% clear, but it feels like they would have done it even if Historia didn't agree to it. That was the feeling I was getting, though I could be wrong. Again, it kind of goes back to earlier, because Historia straight up, she was open to it, or she accepted that responsibility of, taking on the Beast Titan, and even accepting that concept of, breeding as much as possible in that 13-year term, But again, things changed, things changed. I mean, I'll get to Historia, but oh my God. Yeah, but it appears that, Eren was right to be concerned about this kind of thing, because at the end of the day, as inhumane as it might have seemed, and as annoying as this guy might have been, you can see their angle as well, or you can see the angle he's coming from, right? They wanted their own, or someone on their side, to have the Beast Titan, and then, in addition to having the Beast Titan, this possibility of the rumbling, right? Something that's essentially linked to the survival, right? Historia said as much in that meeting as well, right? So, they don't trust Zeke, and you can completely understand their angle on that. Of course they don't trust Zeke. And, like Commander Pix has said, they have to keep on a short leash, right? And they're doing that, but I don't think that leash is going to do much, is it? Given how things just ended on in this episode. Now that, this bombshell has kind of been showcased in this episode, that Historia is pregnant, and they cannot give her the Beast Titan. And again, more on that later, because that essentially kind of answers it, right? Her being pregnant means that she cannot have the Beast Titan, right? But that means now they have no option but to rely on Zeke Yeager, and of course there's no trust there. So again, you can understand their position and the reason that one guy is really, putting it out there. And it should be noted that he's quite loud, right? And there are Marlenes in that restaurant that are hearing all of this, right? And he's speaking of people like Yelena, and he's speaking of Zeke in this manner, right? And he's speaking of the Queen in that manner. So, in that sense, I was happy that Niall stepped in and checked him. Now, as a hypothetical, right, from their angle, this drunk MP's angle, say, the world unites, right, and comes in to attack Paradis, be it tomorrow, a month from now, right? The thing is, now it's not, now it's out of their hands, essentially, right? They have to hope that Zeke, fulfills one half of that rumbling, right, as a Titan of royal blood, right? And that's the thing that has them really on edge, because now they have to trust. I mean, they don't trust in Zeke, but they have to rely on that. They have to hope, right? And trust is the one thing. That's another running theme throughout this episode. Trust is really hard to come by in this episode, or in this, moment, from all kinds of different angles. It's one of the toughest things to come by. And trust has been broken, right? Long-standing trust between friends and loved ones, trust has been broken. Now, on the flip side, you have Zeke, who there's no chance he was going to come in just like that, right? Clearly, he had plans, right? Backup plans, and there's probably so much more that's still going on behind the scenes, with his followers and these other things. Just now, I got a glimpse of a really nefarious plan of his. So yeah, this man is, he anticipated the hostility, right? And in that sense, you have people like Pixis, who also anticipated this kind of thing, right? Or knew that, you can't allow them to just roam freely, because he can also anticipate that they might be, there might be a lot of things going on, right? Plans or their own things behind the scenes. So he was right to apprehend his followers, including Yelena and Onion Capone. Though, Yelena is the one that seems a bit more sketchy or shady in that sense, more so than Onion Capone. Now I say Onion Capone because those are the two they've really focused on. Of course, there's others, right? And you see them present throughout the episode, right? They've got the suits on, right? The black suits. You see them standing at the doors. You see them, they're present. They're all over the place, throughout Paradis, or at least that area, right? And they're present in that meeting. You see them, a line of them, and Yelena's standing there, and then you see a line of them standing behind Lady Kiyomi and her entourage, right? So in that sense, Zeke has quite a presence all around, right? He's got his people in different places already. So, I've been hoping to get more about Zeke Yeager, and I'm getting my fill of it at this moment in time, right? To get to see him at play, right? And I've seen it throughout the season. And, in that sense, again, it's staggering to see that all the things he's put into motion. And, the crazy thing is, it's still kind of unknown how long he's been putting all of these things into motion, right? If you go back to my discussion for season 3, episode 21, that day, even in that discussion, the possibility was there, or, the idea was there. There was enough there to even bring up a possibility that he could be doing his own thing, right? And that didn't mean that, in doing his own thing, that it meant that he's going to be on this side either, Paradis, that is. To me, it felt like there is a possibility that he might be doing his own thing, separate from Marley and separate from Paradis, or the Eldians there, right? That possibility came up even back then, that, all roads kind of lead him to the founding Titan. That's always been his goal, right? And I think it's fair to say that he's always had his own plans for this founding Titan. Now it's been, confirmed essentially, as I do get some official plans through this proposal that Lady Kiyomi brought to them, right? And, I mentioned Lady Kiyomi, and then, of course, in extension to her, Haizuru, Zeke was responsible for bringing her in. So again, he has so many different, he's got hands in all kinds of places, right? He is a mastermind. I think it's safe to say he's a mastermind. And he essentially operates on so many different levels at the same time, right? He's got so many different things playing out at the same time, clearly, or they have been playing out, and now it's kind of led him to this point. Now, speaking of this secret meeting, a lot of interesting things came out of this as well, from both angles. Now, first of all, the ODM gear. I brought up, that idea or that question. Did he ever present the ODM gear he procured from Mike all that time ago, from season 2, episode 1, the Beast Titan, right? He was quite fascinated by that. I'll never forget that moment. This big monkey, this big Beast Titan, he was so fascinated by this ODM gear, right? So yeah, I get my answer. He kept it to himself. He didn't present it to Marley for research purposes. He presented it to Lady Kiyomi. Now, the fascinating thing here is her reaction to it. And, it wasn't just me who noticed it. You see Zeke himself is also kind of puzzled or quite surprised at her reaction, because she was surprised to see this. Like, she had a reaction to seeing the ODM gear. I believe she even said, "That's..." right? And then Zeke kind of cuts in, and he's kind of surprised that she knows about this. And he said, this is top secret in Marley, so how do you know about this, right? That is... yeah, Lady Kiyomi or Haizuru, that presence, there's something going on here, clearly. She knows about the ODM gear. The ODM gear has only existed on Pair D, as far as I know, right? Yeah, she knew. It's clear that she knew this is ODM gear. Like, she recognized it. And I feel like there are some things that could shed some light on this potential reaction of hers. First of all, the mid-episode card. They established in that card that Haizuru is known for developing, talented engineers, right? Gifted engineers. So they excel quite a bit in that department, right? In that area. So yeah, you could definitely link those two together. And then, of course, the second part that you can really draw from here is the mini history lesson she's giving to Historia, or, Lady Mikasa, or Mikasa-sama, as she put it, and for us, the audience as well, right? That for a time, this son from the Shogun clan, he was on good terms with King Fritz, right? And that he used to, come and go, meaning that there was some kind of contact with the outside world, right? For Parody, that is. But again, that was for a time. But, could that also be an angle there? That people, not people, Haizuru or the Shogun clan specifically did used to come to Parody, come and go, meaning, at one point in time, they could have been bringing in things from outside, ideas, engineering ideas and things. So, there is a possibility here that maybe the ODM gear originated from Haizuru, or engineers from Haizuru. But that was a long time ago, right? Like, this is before the Great Titan War, right? So, yeah, that's a bit too long ago for something like the ODM gear to exist back then. That's one angle, right? But again, that's so long ago that it's kind of tough to picture the ODM gear existing back then, right? Or the idea of it existing back then. The other really fascinating, potential here is that maybe they still had some kind of connection to Parody, right? With Parody, even though no one's going in or out, maybe Lady Kiyomi or Haizuru had some kind of connection and they knew about the ODM gear somehow. So, that brings up the concept of spies, perhaps, or an insider, right? Someone on the inside that might be in contact with Haizuru or Lady Kiyomi, or I don't know, man. Somehow they know about the ODM gear, or she knows about the ODM gear. But, even if there is some sort of spy or insider on Parody, how does this person get in contact with Haizuru, right? Or Lady Kiyomi or her people? But, there's something going on here. There's clearly something, there's a connection here, she knows about the ODM gear. In that sense, you see now, right? The new equipment, and you see through their attack on Marley, the scouts showing up. You see that Haizuru has been helping out for sure, right? They've been doing their part for sure. And you see just how much, how effective, their help has been. Now, one of the major things to come out of this meeting of her showing up, right, is the fact that apparently Mikasa is the lost descendant of the ruler of Haizuru, right? That she is the hope of Haizuru, right? Mikasa-sama, Lady Mikasa. I mean, it was jarring. To be honest, it was quite jarring because it's so late on in the story, right? To have something like this, it's a bombshell. But in that sense, I feel like it's not really going to play that big of a role. But Mikasa herself surmised and put together quite quickly that she's being used as a pretext. They set that whole thing aside really quickly, didn't they? And they got down to real business, right? The resources of Paradis, and the things it could do for the Haizuru nation, right? In potentially putting them back on level terms, right? On par with the rest, right? The rise of a new Haizuru, perhaps. And people higher ups like Hanji and Pixis also kind of put this together. They knew Hanji, clearly Yelena told Hanji all about them, and even Pixis knew that, of course, they had to be to make this kind of journey, and it's a dangerous one to make, to Paradis. Of course they had a lot of intent, ulterior motives, and they made it quite clear later on in the episode as well, once they got their reply, that they are not going to help them connect or trade with anyone else, right? Again, because they want to monopolize the resources for themselves, right? So they're not going to let rivals or other nations get in contact and potentially trade for the resources, or even let them have that chance, right? They're not going to let that happen. Now, a moment that did leave me scratching my head is the bandage and the tattoo that's under there, right, on Mikasa's wrist. Now, it was the three swords, right? Three samurai swords, perhaps. And, that's their emblem. And you see in the mid-episode card that it's on their uniforms as well. But, and speaking of emblems, on the other side, the Paradis side, the symbol on their hats, I couldn't quite make that out, I'll have to look it up again. Once the episode ended, I did check out the message Cephazin sent me, the homie Cephazin, the mod, the trusty mod. Again, this outlined everything essentially, and it saves a lot of time. So thank you for doing that, because it would have been quite needless. As you said, it would have been quite needless to kind of go into that angle and like spend 5-10 minutes on this. Not knowing, right, that it was just as simple as them making a choice to not have a child have a tattoo, or show a child with a tattoo in an anime, right? Now, I'm not sure if this is actually going to play a big part in the end game, but I can't really see Mikasa kind of it was almost kind of brought up and kind of they kind of brought it up, and then they kind of just, bookended it by, kind of pushing it to the side, and Lady Kiyomi getting to the real business, right? The resources. And, there's this gross moment as she kind of licks her lips. Like, I'm sure someone saw that. Like, that is such a gross moment, right? It's like, keep that to yourself, compose yourself. But yeah, I doubt Mikasa is going to go down that angle. Lady Mikasa or Mikasa-sama, the hope of Haizuru. I don't know. Maybe, who knows, man? At this point, who knows how things might play out, as long as there's this possibility of the Stampede of the Titans, who knows, right? How things could potentially play out by the end of this. And as I'm on the topic of Mikasa, there's this really tender moment. It's kind of sad. It's a bit of a heartbreaking moment because, it's from that transition from the train scene, right? And that train scene, as the sun is finally going down, right? The sunset is happening and the train is taken off. Even though at that moment in time, they're talking about, topics like who gets to take on Aaron's Titan, right? So they're essentially discussing Aaron's death and, potentially having to eat him, right, to take on his Titan. And then they have, other, things to be concerned about, right? Even if all of that is there, that was actually it appears that was one of the last few happy moments Mikasa had of Aaron, right? There's that really, it's that really nice moment, the blushing, you see Eren and Mikasa even look at each other and they're blushing, but of course, they Armin tried to downplay it or tried to give everyone an out, or by bringing up the sun. Though it could have been the sun as well, right, playing a part, because they are out there that all day essentially, and rosy cheeks do come into play at that point. But still, I thought that was such a great little moment. And you see, Mikasa looking out the window in the present timeline, right? As she is, I believe she's watching the sun go down beyond the wall. It's a beautiful little moment, right? Really tender moment. And you see in Mikasa's face that she kind of longs for even that time, right? 2 years ago. And you see that she's quite, that she's quite sad and maybe even a little bit teary-eyed. They do that anime-specific thing of the shaky eyes, right? And, in that sense, I do feel a lot of sympathy for Mikasa in this moment. Because, she's one of the last few. You see that even Armin has now kind of crossed that bridge, right? That he understands that this is not the same Eren they knew even 2 years ago, because that was one of the things of this episode, right? The contrast, right? In the flashbacks, you see Eren, who is dead set, right? He's desperate to find other angles, other solutions to their problems, right? At first, he straight up just declines Zeke's proposal, right? 2 years ago. Yet, present Eren, he's on board, right? There's been quite a shift. And, you see that Mikasa is one of the, as expected, Mikasa is still kind of, defending Eren, and she's trying to come up with different possibilities, different angles to defend him, right? And trying to explain his current demeanor to the rest, who have clearly now lost hope in Eren, right? They see him as someone quite different, and, they're not wrong at all. He is someone quite different now. This is a different Eren Yeager, right? That old Eren Yeager, this episode, in that sense, is kind of the death of that Eren Yeager, isn't it? They show us the last moments of that Eren Yeager, clinging on to some sort of hope, or hoping there is some kind of other angle to take. That was the other sad thing, right? You see his hope just fading slowly and slowly, and by the end of it, he's accepted that, it's a dead end. Everything else is a dead end, and this is the path he simply has to stay on. This is the path he has to take. And then, Armin, he knows, he knows, he could see it. Mikasa's clearly holding on for some sort of hope, right? She's clinging on, and trying to just, pull out all kinds of different angles to explain Eren's current behavior to these other friends, right? That have grown up together, that are essentially family, right? But Armin brought up the possibility, that they have options now. And, this comes from that, again, they set up that moment that the military police, Pixis and some of these higher ups now have options, the Titan serum. And, that made me uneasy, right? Because now it's kind of been explored even further through Armin. Now they've, kind of established through a major character that possibility is there, that Eren might be so far gone to them, right? And this is that's another topic, I'll get into that. That they might actually consider, just forcefully making someone else the new founding Titan, or taking that from Eren by having someone they trust, as Armin put it, eat Eren, right, and take on the founding Titan. I mean, easier said than done. It's not going to happen in a million years. They can try. They can try their best, but it's not going to happen. They're not going to take this individual. They're just not even going to get close to him in terms of trying to take the founding Titan from him, as a contingency plan. So that contingency plan is a real possibility now, firmly established by Armin himself, right? And, the fact that he's even thinking of that, or that he is going in that angle, or into that direction, that should tell you quite a bit. That should tell you quite a bit. About how detached everyone feels from Eren. Essentially, Connie said it, right? Did that even look like Eren to you guys? Did that feel like it was Eren? He said no, it didn't feel like that was Eren at all. That wasn't Eren. I believe that's what he said. And again, he's in the right to think that, Armin is in the right, and Jean is also in the right to think that this is not the same Eren they knew, right? Because it's not. It's just not. It's almost impossible. I think it's impossible to, understand this Eren for any of these people, any of his close friends even. And, you know, Armin brought up the notion that, you know, him and Mikasa are going to go and speak with Eren. I don't know how much that's going to help. You know, Hanji tried, but I feel like even if if Armin and Mikasa go down there and try to speak with him, it might result in the same kind of ending, you know. They might try to learn from him, or, you know, ask him to, or implore him to try to explain himself to them so they can understand him, essentially, right? So they can help him. But I feel like it might end up playing out the same. Yeah, it might just have the same type of, you know, conclusion as Hanji's attempt at trying to, you know, get Eren to open up. And yeah, you know, as you saw in my reaction, there was a bit of a heartbreaking moment, you know. It's one of those moments that, if, you know, us, the audience, knows more than the characters, right? Again, us as the audience knows that, you know, his reaction to Sasha wasn't just one of laughing at her death, right? There's other reasons to that. There's a reason behind, or a method to the madness, perhaps, right? But you know, people like Connie don't know that. To him, it was this jarring thing, you know. Sasha, his closest friend, has just died, you know, someone he considers a part of him, a twin, and one of their closest friends is laughing about it, right? So you can understand it from Connie's angle, because he doesn't know about, you know, Eren's whole laughing thing, right? And the reasoning for it, or the reasoning behind that reaction. So, you know, that kind of, that was the reason I was kind of, you know, reacting in that manner as that scene's playing out, because, you know, that kind of almost puts the nail in the coffin for someone like Connie, right? But yeah, that was one of those unfortunate moments, because no one actually knows. And I brought this up in my discussion, didn't I, for a few in that episode, in episode 8, that no one actually knows other than maybe Mikasa. But, you know, even though Connie brought that up, Mikasa didn't know the context, right? She wasn't just able to straight up, you know, kind of give some kind of clarification on that, and, you know, and say, oh, you know, no, he wasn't laughing at her death. This is kind of how he handles these kind of situations, right? Or, you know, maybe provide that angle. But she wasn't able to do that, right? Because she didn't have enough context, right? She wasn't there. In that sense, you know, it's interesting that, you know, she wasn't present as this happened. And you see Jean kind of holds a lot of things back, right? Yet he puts out enough, right? He's telling Connie to, you know, stop it, come on, you know, don't bring this up, because he knows Mikasa is right there, right? He knows about Mikasa's connection with Eren, and, you know, what Eren means to her. And as Connie is explaining this to them, you know, you see Jean, that look on his face. He looks right at Mikasa, right? And then he looks down, right? That look, oh man, beautifully animated or drawn, you know, you could tell that look. You know, Mikasa understood that look for sure, right? Jean kind of, he doesn't have to say anything, but he, you know, that look tells her, Mikasa, come on, you know this is not the same Eren anymore. You know, and staying in that room, I think Connie bringing up a potential of them, you know, having to cut him down if need be. Now that's a whole other matter altogether, you know, potentially cutting down Eren Yeager, who possesses the Warhammer Titan, the Attack Titan, the Founding Titan. That's a whole different matter. But, you know, just the notion of that, I think that is important, you know, in the potential endgame of this series. And, you know, this is the final season, so, you know, it's actually there now. You know, that potential is there now, given how different Eren is, and, you know, how dead set he is on his or on the path he has to take, right? And, you know, Connie mentioning that really does set this up, doesn't it? That there is a possibility that they could find themselves opposite to Eren, right? And that they might have to fight him. That's a real possibility at this moment in time. That, you know, their enemy might become Eren. You know, now I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, but this is starting to remind me of Anakin, you know, Anakin Skywalker, and, you know, then Obi-Wan, right? Who sees a dear friend kind of slowly change and become almost unrecognizable, right? I think there is a parallel there. And, you know, of course, Obi-Wan had to cut Anakin down, you know, and beat him or defeat him, or face him, you know, essentially face him, even though he didn't want to, but he had to, right? So, yeah, I see some similarities there too. But of course, you know, no one can actually take him on one-on-one. Even as a group, you know, I don't think anyone can really take on Eren at this point. He's essentially a god, right? He's, I don't know how anyone could potentially even take him on. But let's see. if it gets to that, let's see how they could potentially handle Eren Yeager. But before I kind of end off this segment, let's kind of go back to some of the nice moments in the flashback. And I felt that was such a great bonding moment, right? The team kind of building the track, and it was great to see them actually put the things they learned into motion, right? Actually build the tracks and the train. Because in the episode before this, you see that Anya Capone and, or maybe I'm not 100% sure who was showing them, but they were telling them about trains and tracks clearly, teaching them. And now it's great to see them put that into motion, building tracks and building tracks towards new horizons, perhaps, right? And of course, there was that moment of, even though it's quite a dark topic, it was a really beautiful moment as all of them are kind of stepping in to say they'll take Eren's Titan, as his time is coming to an end. Of course, Mikasa jumps in first, but she can't really become a Titan, can she? Right? She's not Eldian. So yeah, she instantly put her name in there in the hat. But Jean, told her no. There's still so much that's unknown about the Ackerman, and of course there's a Haizuru angle, so you can't mess with that. They're like one of our only allies, or the only nation that is open to kind of collaborating or doing something with Paradis. And then Jean puts his name in there. Jean actually presents quite a good case for this, right? And I thought it was a great moment that he was open to this idea, right? And of course, there's a brilliant moment of Sasha and Connie just going back and forth, and they're legitimately just baffled at the things they're kind of saying to each other, right? And not realizing that they're both idiots, right? And not actually understanding that's how others see them. I thought that was such a funny moment. And of course, there's that beautiful notion that, each one of them is also trying to be protective of the one that put their name in there before them, right? Now, actually, I got something quite interesting here. It appears that the initial plan to infiltrate Marley it was something else altogether. It wasn't meant to be anything that Eren ends up doing, right? So Hanji's plan was something else entirely for infiltrating. And again, that great moment of her saying, if you don't understand something, go out and find out, right? Go out there and understand it. Again, the late Commander Smith said that as well in the series, season 3, part 1 finale, I believe. And and Hanji was present there as well, and Heicho was there too. In that that meeting they had, deciding how things should kind of play out. And of course, I believe Hanji has said that too before, to Eren himself. I'm pretty sure in season 1 at one point, right? Right then. So let's tackle it. The bombshell. Historia is pregnant, and that's in the present time, right? Now, listen, the moment Niall's going on about the story and presenting the story, right then and there, I felt like, something is so off. I should establish right from the beginning that I do think this is a misdirect. I feel like this is a red herring. It just seems so off, right? I don't want to, I certainly do not want to accept this, that Historia's character has been reduced to this, that, she's going to have a child with this nameless, faceless, ambiguous, even, farmer man, right? They don't even try to, establish him as anything other than just someone from her past, right? Inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, right? Now, of course, there's a lot of things that are possible because of this, or, there's reasonings for this. Clearly, this happened for a reason. Again, and one of the main reasons is that it coincides with Zeke arriving on Paradis, yet she is pregnant at that moment in time, right? So yeah, before I go any further, I'm just gonna say no. I don't think this is the full story on this. The true story on this. I like Niall, but Niall is also clearly given this story. Someone gave him this, narrative, right? And he's presenting it to them. Though he did specify that the queen herself made the choice, right? So even if it is a fake story, at least they're putting that out there that she made the choice. I like that part of it for sure. Though, I don't buy it. I don't buy the story. it's, come on, this is Historia. This is a major character. She's a queen, and I just can't buy that all of a sudden this is how her life is going to play out. And, I immediately started getting more Game of Thrones parallels or, connections. Of course, Jon Snow and Ned Stark and that whole angle. Now, of course, before I go any further, spoilers for Game of Thrones. So, skip maybe the next 2 minutes or so. Game of Thrones has this kind of thing in there, right? Identities, secret identities, or hiding identities of a potential, important person or important, child, perhaps. Hiding their lineage. Now, before I go any further, there's also another angle, potentially a fake pregnancy, perhaps. I feel like that scene made it quite clear that she's pregnant, and this person, this farmer man from her past, or essentially this caretaker even, he's asking her to come inside, that she has to take care of her body. That scene itself, there's no need to show us that scene if he didn't actually mean that, right? So in that sense, I've already kind of debunked my own angle, potential angle. I feel like she might be pregnant. That is the case here, but now, let's get into the things that are possible because of this, or things that are happening because of this. Two things. Essentially, it affects her and it affects Zeke. First of all, her being pregnant means that Zeke is, he's around. He gets to, stay alive for a bit longer, right? Or that danger is out of the picture, right? So, of course, her being pregnant means that Zeke has to, keep the Beast Titan, even on Paradis, right? And of course, her being pregnant means that she doesn't have to become a Titan, right? And essentially, that was the thing. Eren is not ready to sacrifice Historia, right? Now, this actually goes into the other thing Cephazin brought up in the message he sent me, right? This translation error, right? Or mistranslation, or just a different take on the translation from the manga. Now, the mistranslation or the omission, manga to anime, the line from the manga, Hanji's line, that is, in the opening there, is, I knew you would never sacrifice Historia, right? So reiterating that to Eren, like she knew he wasn't going to sacrifice her. And, that's the key here, right? By her becoming pregnant, she is not going to become the Beast Titan. For now, at least, right? It delays it, right? It delays everything. It delays Zeke potentially having to die early. And it also delays Historia having to become the Beast Titan and then, being cursed with the 13 years, right? Essentially sacrificing her. If, they allow, or if Eren allows this to happen. And of course, that was the one thing they've established once again. This isn't the first time, but once again in this episode, they established that he is not ready to sacrifice Historia, right? And Hanji knows this. She's noticed this. She's one of the few that has noticed this. And, even in this episode, there's moments that she notices his demeanor towards Historia, that's the reason she brought it up, because she understands this. She's picked up on it. Now, the interesting thing to note here is that in the flashback scene, as Lady Kiyomi presents Zeke's proposal to them, she almost immediately accepted it, right? That she'll inherit the Beast Titan, right? And take the responsibility of bearing as many children as possible in that 13-year cycle, right? She accepted that, right? That should be noted. And of course, the only one to stand up to that, even though everyone around that table, they were quite sad about this, no one was happy about this. You could see in the expressions. Yet Eren was the only one who was really outraged by this and just could not accept it. And he steps up once again. And, Hanji noticed this, right? Of course, everyone noticed that. But then, of course, Historia noticed this as well, right? There's this moment as she kind of tears up for the concern Eren is showing for her and has shown for her, as shown in the last episode as well. The first time they bring up the possibility of Zeke's secret plan, right? And Eren confirms it to everyone for the first time that, it was someone of royal blood, a Titan of royal blood that allowed him to initiate the founding Titan, or the abilities of the founding Titan, right? And Historia sees that as well, or she hears Eren speak of how he was concerned for Historia. Yet now she appears to be going through with another plan, right? Instead of accepting all of that, she's not doing something else entirely, and this coincides with Eren coming back with Zeke. Now, to me, it feels like it's pretty clear cut that this is probably Aaron's doing, isn't it? Because, he doesn't want Zeke to die, and he doesn't want to sacrifice Historia, right? So it appears that he might have approached her about this, right? So, they thought it might have been Yelena, but I think it's probably Aaron himself. And, given her state at the moment, and she seems like she's pretty far along, right? The timing of this, to me, it feels like Aaron kind of wanted to put this into motion before he kind of goes through with the plan of the whole Liberio plan that kind of ended with him bringing Zeke back to Paradis, right? He wanted to make sure maybe that Zeke is safe on Paradis, that they're not going to be able to turn him into, or, feed him to a potential royal titan, right? A pure titan, and that would be Historia. So, right, two things happen here. Historia is not sacrificed, and Zeke is safe, right? And also, Historia has no connection to Yelena, and certainly not the type of connection she has with Aaron, and it's certainly a special connection, her and Aaron. And, this is something that's been like an ongoing thing since, I'd say, season 3, part 1, right? Aaron and Historia, that is, they do have a connection, right? There is a special type of connection there. Now, I can't quite say it's a romantic connection, but, there is this sort of respect and trust. So, if Aaron was to approach Historia about this, I think she would listen to Aaron, right, and take it seriously. Now, given Historia's state in that scene, she seemed quite detached, didn't she? There was no hope in her eyes or life in her eyes anymore. Seemed depressed. Certainly didn't seem happy, with the situation. That's for sure. Even in that scene as she approaches this farmer man from her past, and this is as Niall is telling the story, right? Though, of course, that might not actually be how it played out, right? I don't know at this point. But I'm just kind of, I can just really comment on the things I've seen so far, right? Now, so it certainly felt like a last resort type of planned in, and, desperate times, desperate measures. And now, of course, that detached, lifeless state she's shown in could also be due to the fact that she might be living a lie, right? And pretending to love or be interested in someone she has no attachment to. And see if it actually is this man. It certainly wouldn't be fair to him, right? It's not fair to him either. But, I can't accept it. I cannot accept this. Surely there's got to be more to it than this, this farmer man. Now, the other angle here is the possibility of Aaron himself being the father here, right? Because as I just said, this episode once again kind of, brought it to the forefront that, there is some kind of connection there. Aaron and Mikasa, there is this trust, there is this respect. And, people like Hanji notice this, right? So much so that she brings that up down in the jail cell scene. Yeah, there's a possibility that it could be Aaron himself. Essentially, it's either it is this farmer man, or the other possibility is Aaron, because, again, Zeke's life and his, plan, or the secret plan of his, is on stake, or at stake, sorry. So yeah, could Aaron allow some random guy to even, or could he put this on some random guy, right? Rather than just, make sure that he goes through with it himself. And then, of course, that brings in the possibility of a parallel to Grisha Jaeger and Dinah Fritz, a Jaeger marrying someone of royal blood, or someone from the royal family, continuing that cycle, right? That's a theme, or that's a running theme throughout this series as well, right? The cycle continuing, things playing out over and over. But that being said, Historia knows about Aaron's limited lifespan. So, if that is the case, if they did decide to have a child together, could she, go through with that, knowing how, she didn't have a father figure growing up? Would she put her own child through this, not having a father figure? Because if, say, Aaron is, at this point in time, there's no, lifting, or there's no possibility of lifting this, curse of Ymir. So as of this point, yes, he is he is going to pass on, right? Unless the show starts exploring that aspect of it, potentially lifting the curse of Ymir somehow, as a potential end game of the series. But as of this point, yes, he's meant to die, right, in a few years' time. So could Historia go through with this, knowing Aaron's situation, right? That takes you back to season 3, episode 7, that flashback she has to Ymir, right? And Ymir she remembers Ymir telling her that she wants her to live a life that she can be proud of, right? So having a kid, that's a big deal, right? You have to think of Historia's outlook on this. Is this something she could be proud of? I mean, they've already established that Historia loves children, right? Her orphanage, and again, that takes me back to season 3, episode 11, Bystander. They show us that she cares for these kids, right? These orphans. But also, as I'm on the topic of that episode, I remember Aaron bringing up to Armin and Jean that, Historia said, if anytime anyone needs my help, right, I'll come to their rescue, right? I'll come help them, no matter who they are. And also, Niall did bring up quite an important point, didn't he? That, childbirth is quite dangerous as is. So, and especially, given the fact that she's so petite, right? And it'll be her first time. So, there's no guarantee that she could survive something like this either, right? So that risk is there too. And if Historia dies in childbirth, right, that's the royal angle gone, right? There's no more royal blood that they have on their side in terms of passing on Zeke's Titan to. So there's certainly an element of risk in there. That's for sure. Essentially, I just hope that Historia's, this pregnancy doesn't become like a plot device. That Historia doesn't just become a plot device after everything they've done with that character. Now let's look at this opening scene. Essentially, I've gone backwards. The opening scene, Eren and Hanji. I absolutely love that Hanji is still showing interest in Eren, right? That she is still trying to understand Eren. And that she does, believe that maybe, she could try to understand him, right? Maybe she could try to understand his angle on this. And, the thing is, I think she even knows there is something going on with Eren, right? Something different, something only he could, potentially understand. But she does want to understand it, I think. Even going back to, season 3, episode 21, Attack Titan, she noticed his behavior in that jail cell. She's like, oh, you were holding your hand like this and you just said Shingeki no Kyojin. Like, she was picking up on this, right? She was picking up on something that is going on with Eren, right? She knows, Hanji is one of the, she might have this really, fun, goofy disposition about her, yet she is one of the most intelligent people in this story, right? She's one of the most inquisitive minds of the story. So you could tell that she is picking up on some of these things, right? She's picked up on a lot of these other things, she picked up on the fact that he does care for Historia. And, I feel like she does have some idea that Eren is experiencing something beyond things that others can experience, right? And in that sense, even the opening of the episode, him looking into the mirror and saying "Tatakai," right? And he was so laser focused that he didn't notice Hanji come up, and she's just standing there watching him do this, right? And the thing to note here is that she essentially establishes it as something that isn't normal, right? To her, it wasn't as simple as him just looking into the mirror and seeing this. I think she felt that this could be something more. Again, going into that whole notion that he's experiencing something different, right? I mean, the audience knows this since, it really came into focus in season 3, episode 21, Attack Titan, as he's really experiencing these memories and getting transported in a moment in time and reliving those memories as those people, his father and Grisha Jaeger. Now he's added yet another whole, I'm not even sure the term, but he's added the Warhammer Titan. Now there's that angle, right? The whole new set of memories, essentially, that he might be experiencing as well, that's in there now. Now I've got to say, this next translation or omission that I was given, or something that was clarified for me in this message, this one has me a bit puzzled, the reasoning behind this. How come they made the choice to do this? The actual translation the actual proper translation for this, that makes much more sense to me, of course. I mean, essentially, even the thing they gave me, you can kind of surmise the same thing from it, essentially. You can see that he is desperate to hear about any other ideas. Even before I saw, the translation omission, or, the actual translation from the manga, as I saw that during the episode, I did feel that sense of not panic, but impatience, perhaps, that he knows time is running out. They've run out of all options, and I felt that in that moment in time, even though he is quite a scary individual, let's not forget that that angle is still there. Even if he wasn't trying to be menacing or trying to scare Hanji, he just is. He is a scary individual at this moment in time. He's quite the specimen. Even, human Eren is, he's quite the specimen. He's grown quite a bit, and it's certainly a scary moment for Hanji. Let's not forget that it is. But I don't think it was his intention. Even before I got, even before I read the message, I don't think it was his intention to, behave in a manner that is, yes, one thing I think all of us can agree on, him grabbing her, by the throat, essentially. That's a bit far, right? But again, that is also indicative of his current state of mind and how distressed he might be, or how on edge he is. And, I did get the feeling that he feels that he's backed in a corner. And that's a feeling I had, before I even checked the message after the episode. He's almost kind of like, asking her, that if they did come up with something, is there a plan? Did you guys think of something? Is there another angle that can be taken? Because at this moment in time, there's only one option, and he's on that path. And this is an immensely powerful individual, right? He can actually put things into motion at any time he wants. He told her as much, and he told her, if I'm only here essentially because I choose to be here, right? So it's only a matter of time, isn't it, right? And I feel like this scene actually does depict that, that impatience, that, feeling of being cornered, and, the last resort, that he is in a last-ditch attempt asking her, that since she is down here, he is kind of asking her, though of course, it's a scary moment, he is kind of asking her, is there another angle? Have you thought of something? Is there another path that can be taken? That was a feeling I was getting. And, then I read the other translation, and that is perfect. I'm baffled that they didn't use the actual translation for this, because, yes, after reading that, it makes even more sense that, yes, he's, even though it is a bit of a scary moment, it's more of a plea, this last resort almost, because war is coming, right? They're backed in a corner, and he's asking her, right? If there is another path, please, tell me about this path. Essentially, some of these translations, or the choices they made here, kind of made him seem like a bigger asshole, in that sense, right? That it's more so that him taunting her, and being arrogant. So yeah, it is a bit surprising that the official translations are taking such an approach, or they've made these choices, choices that present him in a really specific manner, or could present him in a really specific manner to many. It's a massive audience, right? So I could see how, some of these mistranslations or these choices that are being made could paint Eren in a different light than the author or Isayama-san is trying to depict in this particular scene, right? But yeah, I think that's about it. That was absolutely packed, that episode. And, actually, that's not about it. Now, one thing, Zeke's proposal, a sample of the rumbling, right? Come on. That part is, no. it's like a genie in the bottle type situation, right? Like, you can't just do a segment of it, right? Surely you can't hope to control just a segment of it. They've never done it, right? Zeke has never done this. Eren has never done this. But, Eren is a different case altogether. He has the founding titan, right? Zeke is just a titan of royal blood. But, that's important. That's certainly important. But, he doesn't have a complete understanding of this whole, the stampede of the titans, or how things are going to play out once they do exit the walls, right? Yeah, that is, I don't know. Is Zeke even, now I have to question, is Zeke even actually being real about this? Is this actually something Zeke wants to do? As I mentioned really early on in my discussion, I feel like there's still so much to Zeke. Right, there's still so much to him that I don't know. So, this sample of the rumbling, I feel like this is one of those situations that, once the genie is out of the bottle, you're not putting it back in, right? Yeah, so, but now here's the thing, though. Here's the interesting thing. How much does Zeke trust Eren, and how much does Eren trust Zeke? There's that angle as well, right? They both understand that they are necessary, that these two together are necessary, that's for sure. But again, they haven't shown us just yet the kind of trust they have. It doesn't mean that this, just because they are, kind of teaming up at the moment, doesn't mean that that their endgame plans, or, their outlook on this is the exact same, Zeke is talking about, doing a sample of the rumbling, right? But, he's not the founding titan. He doesn't have the founding titan. Eren has a founding titan, right? So he essentially makes the final call on that, right? And again, that's assuming they do come in contact at some point, and, they do attempt something at some point, right? So Eren is the one with the founding titan, right? So there's that angle as well. How much trust do Zeke and Eren have in each other? And are they always going to be on the same page, right? Let's see. Right then, so if you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. Consider subscribing if you do enjoy the content. And if you are interested in early access to the next episode right now, or perhaps even full length, consider checking out the Patreon page. Once again, it's just an option, and if you are interested, check out the link in the pinned comment or the description. Check out the different listings on the Patreon page, and even beyond that, you can just go there and check out the plans I have for anime. Right then, that's about it for that. I'm quite excited to go to episode 11, but also a bit terrified. I'm kind of scared, but again, there is a sense of excitement as well. So I'm actually going to watch that right now after I wrap this up. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope to see you again soon for the next one. So until then, take it easy.